Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, a name came to me, I don't know, last week or something, to call this meditation that we're doing on Sunday Gratefulness Meditation. And I really liked the name, and I was waiting to see if it would. I didn't want to name it and then just have it fade away, but it seems after 2 weeks that there's good settings that are happening, that the transmission's flowing in the meditation and all this stuff that I would have hoped for. And I want to talk about the name, but in my Journey Series 94, I mentioned that I have a name, so that's should be released tomorrow, I think, Monday. And I'm probably going to release this Sunday or Monday. I don't know when I'll get this done. I'll release it tomorrow on Monday because there'll be feedback coming in today, and then I have a regular video I'm going to put up today here. I'll make this public Monday. Today is March 5th, and it's the second Sunday in which we've been doing this gratefulness meditation. And so in this 94th edition of the Journey series, I talked about why the Heartfulness name isn't great. And I say there in it, I'm going to include it in a future video, which is this video. So let's play that clip. This talks about, the issues with the heart as a name. And then I want to get into why the Gratefulness name is a great name for the meditation group. So here's the original clip I put in from my Journey 94. Okay, so continuing from wherever I left off last time, I've thought of a name for this Sunday group meditation. Not that it's an organization or something, but just it'll make it easier. I want to create a playlist and all this stuff. We're still on week 1. This is Wednesday, following the Sunday meditation. And so I'm not going to say the name now because it might just fade away and then who cares, right? But, if this thing sticks around and I'm getting lots of positive feedback, people wanting this to continue, a simple name came to me and I'll talk about it. And please don't suggest names because I already have one because that's what people do. But I have a problem with the name Heartfulness. I initially had a problem with it years and years ago because, there was an existing Heartfulness movement. Huffington Post had its own Heartfulness page. I Googled it when I first heard the name. I didn't like it, but it already existed as a term on the internet. Like several different organizations were using it. They hadn't trademarked it or copyrighted it, but it was already being used. And in the past, Sahaj had done a bad job on the internet with such things. So I thought they would just, get a name that would be confusing and people would search for it and find the Huffington Post thing or something else. But they did a good job of owning the name, right? That was one of the first things that impressed me about Dodgy and the Heartfulness thing. But I never really loved the name. But now I dislike it for a different reason. Because it's not really what Sahaj Marg is about. You do meditate on the heart, but it's more than just that. Because Babaji had defined the heart as the seat of the soul. That pretty much everybody's soul exists in point 1 of the heart region. So there was the heart region, the mind region, and the central region. And the heart region is where you start off, almost everybody. And he only found one person in point 4 of the heart. Even Babaji started off at point 1, and he was Patanjali in a past life. Only a few souls had made it out of the heart region on planet Earth, and none of them, were a part of this thing. But you start in the heart, where your soul exists, and then there's the Atman point, the Atma point, which is the soul point, which is point 2. And almost everybody who ever was a spiritual saint and master, a highly developed being, that's as far as they made it on their spiritual yatra. It took 45 years. But also, Babaji said, the heart is sort of the toilet bowl of the system where all your samskaras reside. So you have your divinity in your heart, but you also have all your spiritual grossness, all your, heavy samskaras, impressions and things. And so this is where your storage area is for all the grossness that you're going to take with you. And so it is the divinity that's within you, but also the depravity is stored in your heart. And, with what's happened with Heartfulness, the organization, you could almost, see that the depravity has overwhelmed, the divinity within the heart of the Heartfulness organization, right? And Daji as well. The heart is where you fall back to. If you make it up to the mind region or the central region, you fall back to the heart if you have a spiritual fall, because there's the pull of the grossness that happens that you're creating, even though you've moved past those points. In fact, there's not so much cleaning done in the mind region or the central region, and for good reason, because people haven't even been up to those regions, and it's not where the grossness is stored. Grossness is accumulated in your heart region, right? And although you meditate on the heart region isn't your goal. The central region is, right? And it isn't the central region, it's God, but that's where God resides. And so, again, it's not really reflective in the goal. The natural path is a great name for the organization because it is a natural path. You're finding your natural purpose here, which is to return to the source. But heartfulness is, again, talking about where you start, not where you finish. And you're not thinking about the goal. And so I see why they chose that name, because it would have a broader appeal. And of course, Daji was clear that Sahaj Marg wasn't going to make it with the people outside of India, because people would be, put off by that. And, it made sense in the beginning, but then he abandoned everybody but Indians, right? He's holed up in India. He's not leaving the country. He's going full Indian. He's embracing the Hindu Nationalist Party and these other organizations, and he's bringing in Indian music and Indian culture, and he's doing everything in his power to make it just for Indians and not for people outside India or the Indian culture. And so he's reversed himself. I mean, all the things that he started off, working against or working for, he has now reversed those things. And that's, the end of this, heartfulness movement that's saturated by depravity and grossness, because, a name is important, right? And the name, is a failure on every level, not only because of what I just said about what's in the heart, but also because it didn't, take with the people the name was there for people outside of India. And so all of it has been a failure, right? And I think the name had a lot to do with it, not thinking through what that meant, heartfulness, right? Because the human heart, for most people, is, just a gross, the etheric heart is just gross and filled with some scars, and, most people can't even feel love and whatever it is, right? And, we start off in the heart and we move to something more refined. I'll probably say this thing more, maybe I'll just include what I put in here when I finally do the name, so I have to do this thing twice. So I'll stop here because I don't want to have to, listen to this again and edit it out. But yeah, I'll include this in a video if I talk about the name. Like I said, we'll wait to see how all this plays out in the next couple of weeks or whatever it is, right? It's hard for me to sustain things, as many of you know, for a variety of reasons. And, I don't think that'll be the case here, but we'll see. And if people lose interest in it, then, we'll see how it goes. And just in terms of my own reading of the situation. But right now it looks like, it's a positive thing and it's meant to happen. And so that's the end of that voiceover. I want to talk about the Gratefulness name, but I had one more thing to add to this. And that is, when they originally picked the Heartfulness name, Daji didn't think of it himself. He asked for people to come up with names for this new whatever they were doing. I think this guy, Mr. J from America, actually thought up Heartfulness, and people talked about it for a little bit, and, it was circulated around, and There were some other names being considered, and they eventually went with Heartfulness. And it's a very typical way that people would think of names. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the way it's done in Sahaj Mark. Everything that Babaji did in naming the system came from his divine connection to Lalaji and the divine hierarchy and God and all this, right? That there was some inspiration, and he was ordered, okay, start this, call it this, do this, right? Everything was channeled, everything was inspired from the divine. There was no sense of asking the collective people in the group, let's come up with a name or something like this, right? And everything that I do here is done in a similar way, where there's a free flow of connectivity and inspiration, and that's how the name Gratefulness came to me. And it just was popped in, it was just there, and I was like, oh, that's a good name, right? And so everything that Daji has done has been very contrived, and he's out of the flow. He lacks faith, and he also lacks gratitude. Cutting Master Charji out and Babaji out of the gatherings, it hurts everybody, including Daji, including Kamlesh. But it's disrespectful to Charji and Babaji, and shows a sense of ingratitude, because Babaji was the master when Kamlesh first started, and he was around for I don't know, a few years, I think 8 years or so. He met Babaji a few times. He was a younger person, and then for 32 years or 31 years or something like that, Master Charji was his master, and he was the one that really helped Daji achieve whatever he achieved spiritually, Kamlesh. And his lack of gratitude to them, which is a big part of his falling, because as long as you stay grateful, you won't spiritually fall. It's when you start, this is when people get mad at God and they get bitter towards God. These are the things that really cause problems. When things don't go your way and you start getting angry at God, you start blaming God, right? Daji has failed as a master, and he's failed as a businessman, and I assume he's failed as a father as well, given all these other things that have happened in his life, right? And it's the disconnection and lack of gratitude and remembering where good things come from, where all things come from, not just good things. And being grateful for even the bad things is what's essential about the Sahaj Mark system. Somebody left a comment last night. Let me just go find it. I think it's right here. And this was to a reminder for group meditation on Sunday, March 4th. So this is from yesterday. And the person wrote, Paul, look at the Heartfulness latest video. They are saying to do the cleaning process in the morning, to start the day with a clean slate. The cleanness is supposed to be clean impressions, etc., accumulated during the day, right? And there was a response to that. And I went to look at the video, and it's called Let Go of Complexity, Start Your Mornings with Cleaning to Simplify Your Life. And what the video is about is the practice of cleaning points A and point B in the heart region. And technically, this is something that you could do in the beginning of the day. You would do before your meditation. There's some cleaning that you can do before your meditation. I don't know if it's specified. The person who's doing the voiceover is a Canadian woman who's very nice. She's a longtime practitioner. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about her. I don't think she's ever done anything that's negative or whatever. And she's featured in a number of videos. Nice older lady, but, they featured people who are older when they're supposed to be bringing in young people. But the problem I had with the video was the energy in it. The energy really was off-putting. And the title isn't good either, because this person, who's just learning about Sahaj Mark from me and this channel and, whatever they're doing, right? And hears that the cleaning is supposed to do it in the evening, or has watched some of the videos that are contradictory. And then you have this let go of complexity, start your mornings with heartfulness cleaning to simplify life. And, it's not a good title because it's confusing. Now, the practice of cleaning points A and point B. If you meditate on point B, it's a thoughtless state, and and she starts talking about Babaji gave a way if you had deviant sexual thoughts or deviant materialistic, mostly about sex, but anything like that, cravings, maybe addictions, even you could use it. There's a way to clean, to meditate on point A and point B, not clean, but meditate in a way that would reduce those deviant sexual thoughts. And she kind of touches on that in the beginning of the video. Again, I didn't watch the whole thing because the energy was very off-putting. Like, I haven't watched a Heartfulness video in, weeks. And, this channel's just falling apart, right? Because they're just lost their way. And they got much bigger problems than the specific cleaning points and doing these technical things, right? Because there's a lack of transmission in the sittings, and the organization's falling apart. And this person who's been around since longer, I mean, she was probably doing the meditation for around 50 years or so, long before I started. People who met Babaji and, have been around through the whole Charji 30-year period. And for them to not question Daji getting rid of scrubbing Master Charji and Babaji's holidays is unthinkable. Like, there needs to be some level, and I don't know what people are doing or going through there. But it all comes from a sense of Daji not being grateful to Babaji, not being grateful to Charji, his two masters that gave him everything that he received, and his lack of faith in them, and his lack of gratitude. And so, you can say heartfulness, but is your heart pure and clean? Do you have a grateful heart, right? So gratefulness is superior to heartfulness. I was telling my wife about the name yesterday, and she was like, oh, I love that name, right? And, because I always say be grateful at the end of these videos, so it has a connection to what I do here in terms of everything, and also, it's a better name than heartfulness, right? It's just, it just is. Because a heart can become impure, but gratefulness never will. And gratefulness is a feeling. And so, I'm going to add this to, I'm going to make a playlist. And one of the ways to enhance the meditation is to meditate with a grateful heart. Gratefulness is, as I've said before, it's when something ends, it ends in gratitude. When it ends appropriately. Like, you should be grateful for your life. You should die in a state of gratitude. Everything should end in gratitude. Like, there's the 5 stages of grief. And you go through the negative stages: anger, denial, all these things, bargaining. And then you get to acceptance. And acceptance is fine. There's nothing wrong with acceptance. I like that model because acceptance is good, but gratefulness is better. You understand this. Acceptance is limited. You're accepting something that is bad. Oh, this sucks, but I accept it. Oh, this is a bad thing that happens, but I've accepted it. I'm no longer complaining about it. I'm no longer mad at God or mad at whatever. I'm no longer feeling like a victim. I've accepted. But when you move to gratefulness, it isn't bad at all. Oh, this thing was an opportunity. Instead of being an obstacle or a problem, oh, this was an opportunity. This was a gift from God. This bad thing that happened to me was a gift from God. And then gratefulness just opens everything up. Like, the thing gets transformed. You've now transformed something that was traumatic, that was difficult. I mean, even in terms of this, it sucks that Daji has done what he's done to the Heartfulness Sajmarg organization. But it's opened up the possibility of direct connection. And that's what we're doing here, where you don't need the preceptor, you don't need the master of the system. You need only to connect to God directly using the same methods that were given in the Sajmarg system, and you can receive the transmission, right? And so this idea of, gratefulness is even a part of this transformation from, the suckiness of heartfulness to the, doing this thing where we can connect directly, right? A new path has been opened, and being grateful for that. The transmission's coming through another way, and being grateful for that, right? And so, as long as there's an attitude of gratitude, didn't mean to rhyme there, but that's why I stopped. Like, oh my God, it's not like I'm just gonna bust out a rap here. As long as you have, an approach and a attitude and your intentions are coming from a grateful place, there's no chance of spiritual fall. There's no chance of you just always be grateful for whatever God does. A grateful person, someone who works to be grateful, someone who is always looking for a path to gratitude, will do well on the spiritual path, because humility comes with gratitude, right? That you humbly don't know what's right or good or whatever it is. That whatever God gives you is what's good, and what you think is good is what your ego thinks is good. Isn't as correct as whatever you get. Whatever you get is coming from God, and it's a blessing, and be grateful for it. And so, approaching this meditation with this idea, I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful that I get to do this. I'm grateful for the experiences of my life that have led me to this point. I'm grateful to God for giving me whatever He's about to give me, right? I mean, even before you receive it, that you're grateful for it. When you see situations where there is, multiple kids in a family, and each kid, you would ask them about their father or their mother, but let's say their father here. And it's more so with the father, but also the mother. And each kid will have a different story or a different narrative, and it'll be a different person they're describing, right? You understand this, that each kid has a different father, even though it's the same person. And to some extent, the mother is more, they'll be closer in terms of the kid's, maybe perception of her. But it's what you experience. Or maybe not. Like, it could be just as diverse with the mother as well. Because you, as a child, whatever your samskaras are, whatever you are as a person, will pull out the father that you need to experience, or your samskaras, or your personality for configuration and ego will experience, right? That's why some kids will be like the kid that'll be, favored by a parent, or will be scapegoated, and, the scapegoat feels like a victim, and the favored one feels entitled or whatever. But it's all based in the way that you are in your inner world, and what you consider a father or mother or a boss or whatever, authority figure, right? People have issues with authority. They're going to find flaws. They're looking for flaws. They're looking for ways that the authority figure is going to abuse them. They're looking for ways that the authority figure is going to be corrupt or whatever it is, right? And it's even more so with God. People approach God, and they get the God that, that they feel comfortable with inside them, or the God that's consistent with their belief system. They're going to find it, and they're going to, manufacture things. They're going to imagine things. They're going to, they're going to do whatever it takes to create something that's consistent with their internal world, instead of coming to God, and not with your prejudiced ideas of what God is or what God should be. Some people want a forceful God, an angry God, a wrathful God. Some people want a powerful God, right? Some people want a loving God. And so if you approach God with like an open, I don't know what God is, with some humility, some wonderment, and, a heart full of gratitude, you're going to have a much better experience, right? There's people who quit the Saj Marg meditation, and they felt the transmission and benefited from it for years. And I think almost all of them, if you heard their stories and you could see through whatever reasons they had for quitting, it would be because they didn't believe they deserved God's love. They're scared of God. A lot of people are fearful of God, right? One time Master Charji said, in Christianity, people are scared of God because they want God's son. They don't want to go to God. They want God's son, right? So he said, like, you're scared of your boss, so you go to your boss's son and you talk to your boss's son, and you hope that he'll talk to the boss on your behalf, right? But you don't want to talk to the boss directly. But people have this fear of facing God, of God seeing them. When I dealt with Master Charji, when I saw him, oftentimes I was disconcerted because he could see inside, things inside of me that made me uncomfortable, right? And even when I was getting my preceptor sittings, my final preceptor sitting at his house, the cleaning was so brutal, and all these unpleasant thoughts and things that I, would never have attributed to something inside my, inner system. And these things were just flying out, were coming out of me, and it was just unpleasant. because there's, aspects to yourself that you don't know about or don't want to know about or whatever it is, right? Past life things or, whatever it is, things that are repressed. But when you approach the situation with gratitude, that these things need to be cleaned out and that you're accepting that you're a flawed person, that you have things that are, that are blocking your path to the divine. And, they're not, you're not beating the crap out of yourself. You're not, there's a way that people have of just being self-loathing, and that's not good either, right? There's narcissism and there's self-loathing, and then there's just accepting who you are and being grateful for the opportunity to be better, right? And so that's the attitude that when people approach God in that way, approach these meditations with gratitude for what they're about to receive and, how it will benefit them, and even getting through the unpleasant aspects of it. One of the things that I can say that Saj Marg has done for me is I can tolerate misery and discomfort and unpleasantness much better than I was when I was younger. Impatience, restlessness, all these things. I've become much more patient. I can endure things that are unpleasant and just, find a way just to be happy or whatever it is. When I'm in physical pain or just feeling restless or uncomfortable, that's one of the things the meditations have done. And it's the unpleasant meditations, the ones that you just have to grind it out, even though it's not some blissful experience. And then at the end of it, there can be this blissful kind of situation. At the end of this most recent one, it was a pretty good meditation, very subtle, and there's some cleaning going on. I had the thought that the night before that all the people that are going to meditate, that there would be the cleaning process would commence and start and prepare them for the sitting, right? This idea that the master, the divine master, would prepare them for the sitting to receive. And you can also do that yourself. Prepare yourself, the day before, the morning of, to receive this meditation, being grateful, coming in with a heart of gratitude. When there's a supposition of divine light, having a feeling of gratefulness, creating a feeling of gratefulness in your heart. That will facilitate better experiences. And again, accepting and being grateful for who you are that got you to this point, even with all your flaws, that despite all those things, you deserve God's love. Maybe not even deserve it, but it's there for you. And to accept it, to be grateful for it, be appreciative of it. That's why people are in relationships where people don't love them. People draw to them what they think they deserve, right? They think they're a bad person. They'll draw people that are going to humiliate them, punish them, or going to be a bad spouse and things, whatever it is, relationships like that. Often good people will, have a sense of guilt and shame, and they'll draw to them unloving, unpleasant, difficult circumstances because of their sense of guilt and shame. That's a problem with religious people and religions in general. Religions teach this, right? You're a worthless piece of crap and you don't deserve, all these things. And so the other thing would be narcissism, where you're talking about how great you are and how much you, are entitled to and deserve. And those are the extremes. But in the middle is gratitude, where you accept and you're grateful for whatever obstacles that are in your way, gives you a chance to work to accomplish something, to get closer to the divine, get closer to your goals and all these things. And so I'm going to make a playlist, a gratitude playlist. I'm going to go back and change the names of some of the videos, and I'll start off with, this will probably be the second video in the playlist, or maybe the first one. And the second one will be all the things need to know about gratefulness meditation, a video that's already I'm just going to change the name of it. And so, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.